That's really. I will tell you, I would not mind a reprieve and shaver.
I like shades. Yeah.
We're on.
Anyway.
I didn't see you ever for that, and then I heard how.
And thank you, Anne. She did.
No, I just said it should have to be.
Corrected place better.
You're welcome.
He walks.
Yes, my first day without the boots.
How you doing?
Well, that reminds me, I've been walking for less than a week. I had the boot on as of Saturday.
Mia has an oozing tree, but I think it's a maple, right?
I think it's an oak. Well,
Okay.
John has seen it.
In your backyard?
Yeah, it's dripping something awful.
John, it's dripping.
Okay.
Tree, yeah. I thought it was in this picture, and then I looked up and I really see where it's coming from. Maybe it's a cut. It's from a cut.
Yeah.
It was being taken back, but that was years ago.
Yeah. What's the name of those trees? They're pink now, but the pink flowers grow along the.
Red buds, eastern red
Oh,
buds.
they're so
Those are great, and they're native species.
Yeah. Where do you find, is it time to plant them? Oh, now's a great time. Yeah, we'll be planting some actually next weekend. If you want, you can get a free one in front of your house through the shade tree. Giant tree from there. Yeah. You don't like with apps. Eastern red bud.
Eastern red bud, yeah.
They have all over Ocean Medical Center outside and it's just breathtaking to look at. They are awesome.
That like as a kid.
No, there were none in Bergen County. I remember.
I don't remember that.
We had these ornamental ferns.
Yeah.
all over the place, but not-
A lot of dogwoods, I remember that.
Are those trees kept growing?
The red buds? Yeah, but, and they don't get too big. They stay a nice size, and they have little heart-shaped leaves in the spring. And
Well, then.
now they do, but yeah, they get nice leaves on, so. Good, it's a good little species for us. And they're salt tolerant too, so they're pretty happy around here.
You can plant one on my lawn.
Well,
No,
hopefully-
no, we can't.
Let's do me that.
More of a story.
Spend that much money.
No, you want trees and I'm trying to get a tree.
I love
I'm gonna go buy them. Now, where's the best nursery for fruits? you think? Orlo's?
that. Sounds good.
Orlo's is, I think it's Spring Lake, the lady in there.
Plus, you got.
It's in secret.
It's a nice nursery.
That's either property, TJ or that.
That's Cedar Estates section of Wall Township.
Yeah. Bear station and then.
He's supposed to.
It's a very.
What?
Time.
You know, this morning, he should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
CAR.
Thought they're gonna walk in. That's funny. Good, I like it. I got two of these.
I didn't either, I got one.
Probably not gonna be some more about it.
Oh, yes, yeah, I go late, this is something else.
Thank you. Person. I'd like you there or there. Thank you. I wish they were there. I don't want to fire here. I'm sorry, I put TV on, sitting in my office and watch TV.
Oh, very well. How you doing?
Talk to that, how you doing? Good, how are you? Appreciate you coming. Okay. On Friday afternoon.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. People love that.
Back. Get roll. Everybody. Call to order, pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic.
Wish to announce that the 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act, which emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the new Co-Star on December the 13th of 2022. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Marco, absent. Mr. Noble,
Here.
Mr. Gubatose, absent. Mr. Weber,
Here.
Mayor Fox.
Here. Council President DeMarco is in, she's commute from East Windsor.
Okay,
Will be here today.
okay.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming on a Friday afternoon. I'm sure you had on a Friday afternoon. Scheduling this, we just had conflicts that we tried to work through, and this was the optimum time. We didn't want to do it too late. Number one, and number two, we do have an introduction meeting next week, so we want to have people have time to orientate, and if there are any adjustments between now and next week, we have time to do that. So let me also introduce, I think everybody knows Anthony Mino, our CFO. Anthony, raise your hand. Thank you very much. Anthony's going to be doing some of the presentation and Q&A. I think everybody knows Greg Bernbeck, our interim business administrator. Greg's been instrumental in helping us work through some rigor on the budget past weeks. And then we also have Bob Allison. Bob is the principal at HFA, Holman, Brinia, and Allison. Bob heads up the Zoom. Keep going. I lost my train of thought, sorry. Bob is going to be, Anthony teaches at Rutgers. He actually teaches the curriculum for being a CFO in municipal government. Anthony is teaching, so Bob's going to fill in for Anthony for the introduction and for the introduction and for the adoption here. So we wanted to make sure that he was kind of orientated. We're gonna start with maybe a 10 or 15 minute presentation from myself, followed by Anthony really kind of going through the hard numbers. I think there were copies of both out.
Presentations, I believe some.
So,
Sorry. Sorry, really.
So we'll get started. Michelle, I'll just tell you to, where a better place to stand is. Might be. And you can't, well, you can see up here. Okay, Michelle, then the owls in my. Back here. Okay, Michelle, why don't you, so, again, I'm gonna go through a little bit of the storyline on the budget. It's more of where we are and where we're going, and, Anthony will take us through some of the detail. So, next slide, please. Okay. You gotta remove the, Zoom stuff, Michelle.
Yeah. Hold on, Michelle. I'm just gonna narrow this down, okay? Okay, there you go.
Is this okay? It's okay.
I mean, there's all the fact that they consider Zoom.
I don't know.
You just get the fact that Zoom not working.
It's something that I announced it, so I don't know if it's not. Michelle, is the Zoom working? Michelle?
You can just ask me for one.
Okay. Okay, so I'll start off with talking about really what's our priority in any budget, but particularly this year's budget, because we do have some challenges that we will talk through. I am going to ask Greg to comment on one or two of the slides, and if Anthony, you want to chime in, certainly feel free to. So clearly, we want to maintain our level of service in any budget, upgrade our, as you all know, we have been upgrading our infrastructure on a number of fronts over the last few years, and we try to anticipate near future needs of our town. Next page, please. So we get direction from the state of New Jersey. We all have challenges in every municipality, and to get a budget that is both effective, efficient, and compliant with New Jersey. But in Bradley Beach this year, we're going to be challenged a little bit more, but I feel as though we're going to meet that challenge. So the next slide really talks to one of our big challenges, and Michelle, could you remove that talking office of the clerk, whatever that is? And I'm going to turn it over to Greg for a couple of minutes to talk about one of those challenges.
So as we were going through the process of trying to pare down the original set of sort of department requests that had come in, and that was the subject of the newspaper articles over the last month or so. One of the things we came to realize was that the real problem with the structure of the budget in 2023 was a story of insufficient revenues as opposed to any excessive spending. So the insufficient revenues basically occur as the result of non-recurring revenues being in the 2022 budget that cannot be replicated in the 2023 budget. And as you can see on the PowerPoint, there are essentially three categories of those. One of them is dealing with non-recurring revenues that could not be utilized in the 2023 budget, and include capital surplus,
You're going to be able to
and
be part of
the
conversation.
American Recovery Program money.
Are you going to be able to be part of?
You guys, they should be muted.
In addition, there are certain revenues that were properly anticipated in 2022 that were just not realized. In 2021, in utility construction fees and in fees and permits, about $96,000 more money had been received in 21 that came in 22. We were able to anticipate them in 22, but we are not able to anticipate them in 23. There is a rule under the Division of Local Government Services that requires municipalities to anticipate up to, but not to exceed the amount of monies realized in the prior year. Lastly, there were funds that were anticipated in 22 that are just not available in 2023. And those included something called municipal relief funds. In total, those numbers approach $950,000. $950,000 is frankly the majority of the increase that was originally shown in the increase in the tax levy. You need to understand that the tax levy essentially is the difference between what you have in all of the other revenues and what you need in order to be able to meet expenses. So I would leave it at that.
Thank you. You're gonna be able to ask questions when we're done. But hold that question. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in addition, inflation, we all have known what's going on with inflation in the last year. It doesn't just hit our personal budgets. It also hits the cost of goods and services for the municipal services. So we have been battling that a bit. So our first pass at this was exactly that, a first pass. Back in March, we got departmental requirements requests, made some adjustments for our tax levy cap and really presented the first pass. Next slide, please. So right after that, we were able to kind of dig in and we really looked at 4 areas, I'm sorry. Salary and wage accounts, the all other expense, capital improvements, and reserve for uncollected taxes. Next slide, please. So when we did that, after we spent a good amount of weeks on this, and I thank Greg, Anthony, and all the department heads for really honing in here. At a department line item level, we cut about $173,000. Now, one of the criteria for the departments was where you can cut and not significantly or even marginally affect programs or services, please do so. So they took a look and made those kind of changes. Capital improvement cuts was significant, about $500,000 or $550,000. And then we really zero-based the salary. We reran the salary process. We've gotten a new payroll system and we were able to use the utility of that to really make sure we could look at that and squeeze anything out there that we could. So the sum of that's about $800,000. So if you think about that revenue loss that Greg just talked about, we were able to kind of match that in the context of reductions on the appropriation side. Next slide, please. So as I just said, there was a revenue side of that. And if you look at the revenue in the budget, there's not a lot of room. There's not something we can magically manufacture on the revenue side. So we did move some surplus into that part of the equation, but there's really not a lot more that we can be that aggressive with. Next slide, please. So again, we started it at a high rate. It was 20%. We've been able to bring that to a true tax levy increase of about 5.3%. Again, in the context of this economy, what we witnessed with inflation, we really kind of characterize this budget as prudent, practical, and manageable. It does give us the ability to maintain the level of service to our residents. and do some of the projects that are currently ongoing. Any further might cut into that services for the community, for the service level. Next slide, please. So some people kind of say, well, you know, what's in this budget? Well, this is just a characterization of some of the things in the budget, and that's all this is. But I just kind of want to remind people that it's just not one or two things that the municipality does. There's any number of things, from the police side to the beach side to the code side, to the public works side. So there's a number of things going on. Next slide, please. So in total then, and Nancy is going to go through some of this, but in total, our levy is about almost $19.2 million. That's comprised of a school tax levy of about $6.9 million, a county levy of about $4 million, the borough levy of 7.6, and the library levy. The one that we have the most control over, really the one we have only control over, is the borough levy. The library levy, which has gone up about $100,000, is a formula. And it is one of the things we're going to be looking at is, you know, should we be looking at being an independent library, or should we try to work with the county and become an adjunct? And that'll be something we'll be looking at, because the formula for the library, just quickly, is tied to our asset appreciation in town. So as home prices go up in our town, there's a formula that basically raises this. The library has gone up pretty significantly in the last 5 years. Our appreciation on homes, or really on all of our assets last year, was 19.5%. When we reviewed that, no, Anthony said he's not recalling any town that he's seen that in, like, ever. Was that, am I correctly quoting you?
Never seen an increase of $350 million from one year to the other.
Yeah. So just a point on the library. And then, you know, school, county, those are, they're basically, I won't call them allocations, but that's their budgets, and we fund those items. Next slide, please. So I'll close and then hand over to Anthony. Budgeting is a balancing act. We're trying to get desired, expected, and improved outcomes for the community at the least possible cost. That's the objective of this budget. I think we are there, or I believe our objective has been met around not affecting services, dealing with some of the issues we had relative to revenue, and providing what we need to provide for the community. So I'll close there, and Anthony will cover the dollars, and then we'll take questions and open up. We think that we'll both be about 15 or 20 minutes, so we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. Take it away, Anthony.
How do I put my laptop into this? Because I need to put up the PowerPoint.
No, just tell Michelle. Michelle, put up the PowerPoint.
Oh, she has it?
Yeah, she has.
All right.
That's me, that question.
Sorry.
Give me a minute.
Having some trouble being able to raise the spin. Which is what
You go find out. Sorry. Nine,
Just watching a meeting.
5 degrees. I was more conservative with 6, 9, 5 degrees. Take some more out.
Daddy's cooking, ain't he?
Huh?
Daddy's cooking.
Yes, but he's ready.
Oh, it's time?
Kind of. Yeah. It's almost.
Somebody sounds happy.
Who said the merry-go slow?
Excuse me, Anthony.
Hey, Allison, you go see it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go around. and say something.
Ask them just to mute all the participants.
I can do that for you.
Thanks.
And being, is gonna close the computer.
Look at me now.
It was up for a second, Erica. It was up for a second.
There it is.
Anthony's PowerPoint's showing now.
It's up?
It's up.
Yes, thank you.
Is it? Okay, we're back, Anthony.
All right, so we're gonna go over some numbers right now. So if anyone wants to take a nap, this is the time to do it. So Borough of Bradley Beach, 2023 budget workshop. Next slide. Yeah.
You're in, Anthony?
Yes, you
See you. Next slide.
You want someone to show you?
She listened to you. She knows.
It's not an issue.
Oh. Right. Okay.
All right, I think we're good now. So first up, we're gonna go through the current fund. So Bradley Beach essentially has three individualized budgets. Current fund, which is our general operations, beach operating, which is the beach, and sewer operating, which is the sewer. So first up, we're gonna go through the current fund, which, like I said, is our general operations. So first up, we're gonna go through the revenues. The revenues can be simplified into buckets essentially. These buckets are detailed out by the DLGS, Division of Local Government Services. So I'm going to explain the budget revenues as far as how the state essentially allocates them. First line that we have is surplus anticipated, 1.5 million. So this is fund balance that we've accrued over the years from excess revenues, revenues that we were not anticipating during the year that we collected, sale of assets that we did, insurance reimbursements, things like that. That's essentially how we generate the surplus that we have, our fund balance. So here we're budgeting 1.5 million. Local revenues, we have 382,600. This essentially is comprised of our fees and permits, municipal court fees, if we have any cell tower leases, franchise fee licenses, liquor licenses, those type of local revenues are all allocated here. Next up, we have state aid without offsetting appropriations, 357,746. So this is the state aid that we receive from the state, specifically energy receipts tax. For the last 15 years, this number has not changed at all. It's been the same exact number that the state gave us. Starting this year, well, technically starting last year, they gave us an additional 18,000. This year, during the governor's budget message, he told us that he was giving a 0.07% increase. So not 1%, just 0.07%. So in total, we got about $5,600 more in our state aid than we got last year. So we were able to budget that because that's what the governor graciously gave us. That 0.07% was statewide also. Every single state, every single municipality got that increase based on whatever they had last year. So it's not like we only got that small percentage, everybody got that small percentage. Next up, we have dedicated uniform construction code fees offset with appropriations, 170,000. Exactly what it sounds like. This is our UCC fees, permit fees that people have when they do construction, things like that. That's where we have this budgeted for. Special items of general revenues anticipated with prior written consent of Director of Local Government Services, shared service agreements, 97,200. So these are the shared service agreements we have with neighboring towns. Some of them are salt domes, vehicle maintenance, different items with Avon and Neptune that we have. Next up, special items of general revenues anticipated with prior written consent of Director of Local Government Services, additional revenues, 45,000. So this is any items that we have that are essentially other items. We can essentially consider that with the other items, special items of the 30,000. This makes up money that we have from our general capital fund. A couple years ago, we issued debt in 2021 During issuing that debt, we gained a premium on our debt issuance. Banks essentially fought over us and we got small amounts of premiums from them. So here we're budgeting some of that premium that we got into our general capital fund, into our current fund to essentially offset at least a small portion of our debt service costs that we have. Receipts from delinquent taxes, 200,000. So we have our taxes that we're collecting. We're not only collecting taxes for ourselves, we're collecting taxes for the school, we're collecting taxes for the county, we're essentially acting as a middleman for those other people. So at the end of the year, we have a receivable balance for our taxes. So we are able to budget up to the amount of our taxes receivable in our current year budget, hence receipts from delinquent taxes. These are essentially, like I said, taxes that people did not pay by the end of the year. Now, since they didn't pay, yes, they're accruing interest on their bills. We're gaining interest on them. At the end of this year, same as every year, we're going to do a tax sale. Those properties are going to be sold to lien holders. Well, the tax unpaid are going to be sold to lien holders. So we essentially will be able to, through our tax sale at the end of the year, essentially collect this entire amount, if not more than we have here. In total, the taxes receivable that we had at the end of 2022 was $214,000. So we budget 200,000 just to be a little more conservative, because I'm not sure if we're going to collect 214,000 even. I'm pretty confident, but we want to budget a little below it just to be conservative to help with our fund balance regeneration. Next up, we have local tax for municipal purposes, including reserve for uncollected taxes, 7.6 million. And that's essentially our tax rate. That's only the local municipal purpose. That does not include the county, that does not include the school, that does not include the library, which you see next. That is essentially the taxes that are only going to the municipality for the municipal operations. And then last but not least, we have our minimum library tax of 634,000. So this is the tax that we pay to the library. So the library, like the mayor said, went from 530,000 to 630,000 this year. The largest reason for that increase is the net valuation taxable, the entire value of all the property in Bradley Beach. Last year, it was at about 1.9 billion during 1.7 billion. During the year from 22 to 23, that number went over 2 billion. So we passed the 2 billion mark. That's good. But the problem is that the minimum library tax also commensurate with that increase in the net valuation taxable also increases. So this number is given us to us by the state. There's literally a paper that we download from the state's website, municipal information sheet, and they tell us that we have to budget at least this number. If not, the state will come back to us and tell us that we have to change it. So, next slide. So those are the revenues. Matching them are the appropriations, because we need to have a balanced budget, obviously. The first up, we have our general appropriations for municipal purposes within caps, 8.5 million. This is basically all of our departments. Salary and wage line, other expense line. These are all, like I said, our departmental expenditures. Finance, mayor and council, administration, fire, library, police, tax collector, tax assessor, GPW, public works, all the departments that go into serving the residents. That's where we budget those departmental expenditures. Next up, we have other operations excluded from caps, 1.2 million. So here is where we have our operations that are outside of caps. So these aren't really the departmental operations. They don't tie to any department. It could be, we have LoSAP in here. We have our, the libraries located in here also. So when you saw the $634,000 of the library or taxes, on the other side of the appropriations, we have a matching library appropriation. So then we collect the taxes on the revenue side, and on the appropriation side, we take that money and send it over to the library, basically. So that's an inside and out. But what makes up most of this is that 634,000 of the library. Shared service agreements, 119,500. We talked about those, Neptune, Avon, the salt dome, vehicle maintenance, those type of things that we have, first aid. Capital improvements, 310,000. This is where we're budgeting for capital items in nature. Anything over 5-year useful life, keep in mind. We can't budget for any capital items less than 5 years. That's just state law, local budget law. So anything here is anything going over 5 years. $100,000 of this is a capital improvement fund. Capital improvement fund is essentially dedicated for down payments on large scale projects. You buy a house, you need to have a down payment. We're going to do a bond ordinance. We need a down payment also. So we need to have at least 5% of any debt that we authorize. And in here, we have $100,000 allocated to down payments on bond ordinances that we might be doing during the year. Municipal debt service, 553,000. Here we have a decrease from last year. One of our MCIA, Monmouth County Improvement Authority debt schedules that we had, we finished paying off last year. So we had a sharp decrease in the municipal debt service. But this is where we have all of our principal and interest costs. Comes right from our amortization schedules, so we know what those are ahead of time. And then last but not least, we have a reserve for uncollected taxes, 248,000. Like I said before, we have our we collect the taxes for the county, we collect the taxes for the school. We are obligated statutorily to give that money to the county and the school, even though we're not collecting 100% of the levy. Like I said, we have a receivable, but we're not collecting all of it, but we still have to give those other entities their money. This is where the state allows us to essentially budget a debt expense type line where we're allowed to gross up our revenues for the money that we're giving over to those other entities, but we're not actually collecting. So that way our fund balance doesn't take as big of a hit. Next slide. So now we'll go into the sewer operating. So revenues for sewer operating, surplus anticipated, 366,000. Again, same thing as the current fund. We have fund balance that we generate over the years. We're able to budget that to fill in our revenue hole that we need to complete our appropriations. And then the other portion of our sewer operating is our rents, 1.65 million. Those are all of the rents that you pay annually, quarterly, when you come in, pay your sewer bills. That's what makes it the 1.65 million. Next slide. Next up, we have the appropriations for sewer operating. So here we have salaries and wages, 323, other expenses, 441. We have Neptune Township Sewerage Authority operating. That is another line that we have of 820,000. Essentially, the flow that we have running through all of our sewer lines, we pay Neptune Sewerage Authority for the water that runs through our lines. Capital improvements, 120,000. That's essentially the same thing that I mentioned before, down payment money for projects that we might be doing in future years. Debt service, 177. PERS, Public Employee Retirement System, that's essentially pension plan for sewer employees, 89,000. Social Security, 35,000. We have unemployment compensation of 10 and defined contribution retirement program at 1,500. The defined contribution retirement program, DCRP, DCRAP as people call it, that's essentially if you're not in PERS, but you are pensionable, you should be having some kind of pension. This is essentially a catch-all for people that don't qualify for PERS, but do have the hours that should get some pension plan, and that's according to state law. Next slide. So now we have beach operating revenues. Again, surplus anticipated, 442,000. We have our bathing badges or beach badges that you guys know. You come in, you get them in December, then you can come in, get them all during the year through the season. We're budgeting 1,850,000 there. Concession rents of 80,000, parking meter fees of 100, locker rental fees of 90, and then we are budgeting beach capital fund balance of 10,000. Again, this comes from our beach capital general capital fund. Again, when we issued debt in 2021, we got a premium on our debt issuance. Like I said, banks fought over us, gave us a little more money. We're able to then take that budgeted in our operating budgets to go towards servicing our debt service. Now, it obviously doesn't pay for all of our debt service, but it's something to come in and offset some of our debt costs. Next slide. So here we have our operating for our beach. Salary and wages, 1.5. Other expenses, 497, capital improvements, 234, we have a debt of 199. PERS, public employee retirement system of 17.8, social security of 75, unemployment, 2,000, DCRP of 1,500. Here, now we have an additional line that we didn't have in our sewer. We have PFRS of 39,000. That's our police and fire retirement system contribution. That is essentially, like I said, the police department's pension. We pay to them. The PERS and the PFRS contributions that we have, there's an allocation to the beach, an allocation to the sewer, and an allocation to the current fund. Those amounts are required to be paid over to the state every April. So this month, we'll be paying by the end of the month, the pension costs to the state to go into the pension plan. Next slide. So now we're gonna go over some capital items. We're gonna go over capital budget, capital plan. The one thing to note that this is a capital plan that we're talking about. This is not saying that, all right, we are going out tomorrow and we are doing these, well, not tomorrow because we can't. We're not going out after the budget's adopted and doing these projects. These projects that we're going to look at now, they will still require a ordinance, a first reading and a second reading. If it's a bond ordinance, there will be an estoppel period of 20 days. So basically what I'm saying is when you see the items here, they are not set in stone and we're doing them. This is a plan that we're looking at. Since Bradley Beach is less than 10,000 residents, we're required by the state to do a 3-year projection of the capital funding that we're going to be doing. So just note that the things that you're going to see right now are things that we are going to need to do an ordinance for to essentially fund. So you will be seeing it again at future meetings. So you'll have a chance to kind of say, I don't really like that idea. Next slide. So next up, this is our capital budget and capital plan. I allocate it into 3 different funds because we have 3 different budgets. We have a current budget, we have a beach budget, and we have a sewer budget. So the capital items that we have, similarly, we're also going to allocate in 3 different buckets. So first we have general capital. We're looking at improvements to DPW building, recreation improvements, sinkhole elimination, and Fifth Avenue improvements. Sewer capital, we're looking at improvements to DPW building also. Sylvan Lake bulkhead and sanitary sewer rehabilitation. And then last for the beach capital, we're looking at bulkhead extension. Next slide. So now let's get into my favorite concept, statistics. Yeah. 2022, the average residential home value was $811,000. The same home in 2023, the average residential home increased to $972,000. So about $160,000 increase from one year to the next. Just for reference, 2021, our average residential home value was about $700,000. So in 2 years, the average home value increased about $300,000. So in 2022, that $811,000 can be looked at more in terms of real life dollars for residents as $3,294.15 for the entire year. Only the local municipal purpose. That does not include school because we can't control it. That does not include county because we can't control it. And that does not include library. Only things that we can control, well, that they can control up here in this room. So in 2023, $972,000. Preliminarily, we're looking at a local tax of $3,525.79. Again, not county, not school, not library, only local municipal purpose. So as far as that in terms of tax rates, 2022, our local municipal, for every $100 of assessed valuation that your home was worth, you paid 40 cents. Preliminarily, 2023, we are looking at decreasing that 0.40 cents to 0.36 cents per every $100 of assessed valuation. In 2022 and 2023, for every $100 of assessed valuation for both years, it was 3 cents. Next slide. So in preparing the budget, one thing that we have to look at is our reserve for uncollected taxes. So for reference, in 2022, our tax collection percentage was 98.84%. In 2023, we're budgeting a projection expectation of 98.70% of collected taxes. What Greg had mentioned previously was there is a provision in the Division of Local Government Services, local budget law, that we are not allowed to budget more revenues than we collected last year. This is essentially the same concept. We cannot have a higher expectation than we actually collected in our prior year. So we're limited to that 98.84. Now, we don't want to go up to that 98.84 because that's essentially saying that, yeah, I think I'm going to do better than I did last year. I don't know that. So you want to leave a little room in between those two percentages. Next up, we have our certification of new construction in 2022. So in 2022, there was $28,250,000 of new construction that happened. At the local municipal rate of 40 cents, that resulted in 114,000 of additional ratables. So a portion of the increase that you're seeing in the tax levy, 114,000 of that is because of new construction that was developed during the years. So in the budget process, there's two caps that we really need to look at and hone in on. There's two areas that are important that the state looks at and reviews. One of them is the appropriation cap. Anybody feels bored tonight on a Friday night, peruse the New Jersey statutes annotated. It's a really great read. That law was installed in 1977, 10 years before I was even born. So self to say that law is slightly outdated. So when calculating the appropriations cap, our maximum allowable appropriations within cap, and for reference, that's essentially your departmental budgets that I was talking about before, the salary and wages and the other expenses. Our maximum allowable was $9,070,000, and that's based on what our prior year inside cap was, with a 2.5% increase that the state allows to offset inflation, technically, even though inflation is a lot higher this year. And then there's an additional 1% that we're allowed when we adopt a COLA ordinance during the year, before the budget process. So this number is essentially based on our prior year budget. So in this preliminary budget we have right now, our actual appropriations within caps is 8.5 million. So in 2023, our cap bank, the difference between the two, essentially $517,000. Next slide. So the other cap that we have to worry about is our tax levy cap. Again, statutes, depending on what feels like it. We get a little newer and current instead of 1977 law. Now we're working with the 2010 law. So a little more current. So here, our maximum allowable amount to be raised by taxation, $7,612,388.15. Our actual amount to be raised by taxation that we have in the budget preliminarily, $7,612,387.86. So our 2023 cap bank that we're looking at right now, 29 cents. Next slide, but I think that's it. Yep. Any questions that you want to go over?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you want to do Q&A or get comments first.
Yeah.
Why don't we take comments from the council? And then we can take comments and questions from Blue. So why don't we do, hopefully it'll be about 15 minutes and we'll say that I don't have anything on this.
Okay, I have a few questions. So on the 2022 budget, did we replenish that surplus?
So across the board, our surpluses did have small decreases. When talking to the mayor and Greg, one thing that I did note in the fund balance analysis that we did when I wrote the audit report this year, the amount that we lapsed from unexpended appropriation in 2021 was significantly lower than what we lapsed in 2022.
2022 was how much, Chris? Like 138 or something?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but in 2021, when we lapsed our appropriations, that last appropriations was from 2020 budget. So this year, last year at the end of the year, we essentially unlapsed our unexpended balance of the 2021 appropriations. There was a large decrease. The way the budget was developed in 2021 had less room in there for closing into fund balance. That was the largest change that we saw when we were looking at the fund balance analysis. And that is a slight issue that we are trying to work on rectifying going forward to make sure that our unexpended balance appropriations are something that we rely on to replenish some of our fund balance. They did decrease, and that was one of the main reasons that we saw it.
Would you just provide them with an explanation of what a lapsed reserve is?
Yep. So the way the municipalities work, well, in New Jersey at least, because we're special. Our budgets are open for 2 years at any given time. So right now, we're working with 2 different years' budgets. we have our, well, technically, we do. We have our temporary budget for 2023, but we'll have our 2023 adopted budget. We also have our 2022 budget. So after the second year of that budget being open,
Like the Senate investigation.
after the second year of those appropriations, those budgets being open, that budget is essentially closed into fund balance. So when it closes into fund balance, that essentially is a revenue coming into our fund balance that we rely on.
Okay. Question about the first aid in the fire department, what are the budget appropriations?
I don't have the budget in front of me, so I don't know off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head, the first aid is being increased from $35,000 last year to $40,000 this year. That's correct. There is a statutory authorization to go higher, but many departments have seen reductions. So the fact that first aid is receiving a $5,000 increase, I think will be beneficial for them. In the case of the fire department, I believe the appropriation last year for fire for other expenses was in the tune of 110,000, and this year it is at 92,000.
With the school taxes, it looks like you're not deferring for 2023. Did you defer in 2022? For taxes?
We didn't defer anything in 22. I wasn't around the last time they deferred school. I don't know, this is 21, right? So the last time they deferred school tax was in 21.
So the differential in doing that would be marginal for the next two for less.
It's 50% of any, it's 50% of your levy from your prior year.
Right.
So 50% of whatever the increase was from the last year.
Yeah, so it's the increment differential. It's not something that is not.
Okay. Oh, with the $300,000 increase in healthcare, GIF and pensions, is that allocated to the current funds versus the beach and sewer utilities?
There's a portion that's allocated to the current fund, beach and the sewer. The only thing that's not allocated is the police and fire, the PFRS pension. There is no allocation to the sewer for the police and fire because there's really no rationale to have police allocated to sewer. They're not really as prevalent and as working on the sewer as they are in the current funds.
Okay. Did you transfer surplus from the utilities to the current fund?
This year, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, our, just a point on the, benefits. Total, we're at about $2.9 million that we're funding in all our budgets, and it's up about $250,000 year over year. So it's not a small amount. The absolute amount of them was $2.9 million, and the increment was not a small amount. If you think about 19 million, then on the street of that is the benefits. Liability and workers' comp, just again.
I have another quick question. I'm sorry, and I'll let everybody have questions too, but one more question. So we started at 20% increase, correct?
Yes.
And now we're looking at 6.9. Is this, do I have that right?
Actually, it's 5.3. I used the conservative number from what I sent you guys Monday. Very correct. Said it really should be 5.3%.
So it's 5.3 for the municipal tax increase, right?
Yep.
Now, in the history I've seen before, it was usually about 2%. I know, like, I haven't seen the records for 2021, and I know 2022, they had the surplus and they used the $950,000. So I think this is a good start. I look at it like I have a mortgage or a car payment, it's 2%. And then the bank tells me, okay, now we're gonna make that 20%. And I'm like, what, are you crazy? And then they come back to me, well, we'll do 5.3%. Well, I want my 2%, and I think we have more work to do. I think it's a good start. But we got to kind of go back and go with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
Like when I go through my end of the year expenses, I look, how can I save money with my company? And I go through everything. I think, well, maybe next time I'll print this in black and white and I won't use so much ink. Just, we have to look at every single penny spent.
And I believe in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've kind of uncovered and gone under every rock. And we have had a significant reduction in versus where we started. Going back to the history, the total increase, our average increase in the last 3 years has been about total county sewer, I'm sorry, county school has been about $441,000 a year on average in the last 3 years. So this is higher than the average. The prior 2 years, so that average was about $700,000. So I think we try to be prudent, but with this revenue hit that we took, it's fairly, it's very. Yeah, I'm sure this one.
Well, we could look at shared services, maybe manage overtime.
Well-
Capital expenses, professionals.
Shared services, we are gonna look at shared services because we're going to have to look extensively at shared services going forward. Given the fact that these guys, we don't know where they're gonna go. We got some allowances this year, we may not get those allowances going forward, so we are gonna look at, and we have been looking at shared services. We have put some programs in place for overtime management. So we're trying to manage that very effectively. So any recommendations that you have specifically, we'd be happy to listen to that.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned sewer, Anthony, you had on your presentation, salaries and wages are 323. Do you know how many people that represents? Like how many people are drawing the salary from the sewer?
It's percentages of people, but we got.
Yeah, I know a lot of them, it's like a quarter of their salary. Do you have any idea how many people it was? Before your time,
No,
it's trying to change, like,
It's in the teams. It's 15 people or 16 people, I think.
Yeah, that's about correct.
Yeah.
I know this doesn't change the budget, but this is one thing, but in the past, we tried to get those people out of there, because we don't have 15 people that actually work on the sewer.
We actually do in the context of pieces of people.
Pieces of people.
Right.
Well, at least I know that number. And since you just mentioned it, Mr. Mayor, suggestions for places to cut, I will just throw one out there where, and this is gonna sound like blasphemy to some people out there, but I think we should get rid of the curbside collection of plastic film. I'm gonna say that as somebody who has brought that program to this town. And just so people that weren't here, the history of that is a company that makes a lot of plastic film, they happen to make like Ziploc bags. I don't know if they're feeling a little guilty or whatever, but S.C. Johnson said, hey, we're gonna give your town whatever it takes to collect plastic film curbside for a year, just we're gonna cover your cost, just to see how that goes. And we did it for a year. And what we should have done at the end of that year is say, hey, they're not paying for this anymore. Do we want to keep doing this? But we didn't do that, we were in the middle of the pandemic, quite frankly, and this was late 2020. And we did, and we should have, and shame on us, but in my opinion, and I don't know how much it costs, I know it's negligible, we're not gonna find $1 million here, we're gonna find $5,000 here and $10,000 here. And that's where we're gonna get to where we have to be. But keep the dumpster, anybody is so motivated, they wanna bring the plastic film and keep collecting it, bring it to the dumpster at the yard, that's great. Just have our guys going around and picking it up even once a month, I think it's just something we could just get rid of that. So that's just one suggestion right there. I already talked to the borough administrator about the possibility of going back to dual stream recycling, meaning you put out cans and bottles, and then you put out paper, cardboard, and newspaper, things like that. Towns that are doing that are saving a ton of money, or I should say, they're spending a lot less money to get rid of a ton of recyclables, because single stream recycling, and just ask anybody, you've heard Diageo in this road, we're just getting killed on that. It's just way, way more expensive than it used to be to get rid of a ton of single stream recyclables all mixed together. So that's not gonna affect this year's budget. That's something for next year, but Greg and I already started the conversation. So those are two little things to look at.
We'll turn to the people in a minute to the questions. In a couple more minutes here. One thing I didn't have a chance to put in the presentation, but I dotted it out, is starting in 2019, this is about our total left. This is our total left, 16,900,000. And it's gone to $19 million over the last 5 years. The rate of change in the last 3 years, it is up this year. But on average, it's been about $440,000. Prior to that, our spend levels were much higher, about $689,000. So to the point, we got to, reduce. We always want to be prudent. We always want to reduce, but at the same time, the balancing act becomes: are we going to cut services? Are we going to cut infrastructure improvements? What are we going to do? So those are the doubling acts we have to do. So with that, we'll turn it over to questions. Yes.
Mary Baxter, 218 Fourth Avenue. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I know there's a lot of work that somebody who used to lead strategy for $1 billion company and how to do budgets and strategic plans every year. I know how much work. It's a lot, and I appreciate it. And I also appreciate that the initial 20% increase, I think, based on what I'm hearing, is actually now a 5.3 increase. One thing that might be helpful, you don't have to answer it now, but it would be helpful if you, I don't know, assume everybody has $1 million house. We don't. Some are worth more, some are worth less, but what does that mean? For $1 million house, how does that 5.3 increase? What is that in dollars, right? Because I think it would help dimensionalize things.
We actually have, there's a schedule on that in the tax package that shows.
Great, that's it.
By house, it starts at $100,000. If I want to go to Grand Beach.
All right,
It goes to $1.5 million. So it actually gives you your estimated lapse
all right, good.
this year and last year.
All right, that's helpful. That leads me to another, it's a presentation opportunity. When we used to have to present our budgets to our parent company, which was a very large pharmaceutical company, we needed to look at things year on year. And although you talk to things year on year, you do as well, which I appreciate. It's actually much easier for most of us to just look year on year, and then you can literally talk why this increased, why this decreased. Because this is very hard to go through. And it took a lot of effort to put all these PowerPoint slides together. To me, it would have been easier just to say, kind of like what you did right here, the mayor did with this stuff at a very high level. But to me, that's an easier way to, and then have the delta or the percentage increase or decrease year on year. That's
Corporate America variance analysis.
just, yeah, well, that's just a process opportunity or a presentation opportunity. I actually don't want us to nickel and dime our budget. One of the things when we presented every year, manufacturing and supply chain had to come up with what they call continuous improvement, which means they had to find savings every year, year on year. And what happened over time was there'd be 5,000 here, 6,000 there, 18 there, and all, it was like 85 areas that represented $400,000, right? We ran into problems. Here, so if we're going to save 5,000 on something, like the whole plastic wrap thing, that just seems, I guess that seems easy to get rid of, but don't do it just to save. You know what I mean? If you're looking at a budget and you're looking for savings, my feeling, and I'm sure most people disagree with me, let's not get there by nickel and dime in very small parts over 50 line items, right? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Dr. Tom McGuire, 610 Brittany Avenue. That was also my concern about not seeing before and after. If the new one means, really, I'll be honest, means nothing to me. I have no idea what last year was. I have zero to compare from on the PowerPoint presentation. So whoever put that together, if you can put that out and send it in the email, the entire line item that Anthony just went over, the before and after 22 to 23, if that can be put in some type of PowerPoint and or presentation and just email to everyone, that'd be fantastic. Because I don't know what to ask. I don't know what question, what area to say, hey, where did it go up? It could have been anywhere, so none of us really know that.
The state budget form has all that out there.
Great, but we don't have it right now.
Yep, yeah.
I'm here for this. I just left my house to come here to be presented this information. And now I don't have it, so I feel like I'm wasting my time because I don't know what else to ask about this.
Well, these documents are on the website, right?
I have no idea.
Awesome.
No, well, we posted, oh, no, we put it here.
Okay, yeah. You mean the state farm stuff?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, yes.
So is there any way that we can get that? The before and after, at least from 21 to 23 to show a difference?
Show 22 columns. What we have.
We have information yet.
We definitely need to see 2021 as well.
1, 2, that'd be great. 3 years, 2 to 1. I mean, I'm not corporate America, sorry, but I'm small business America.
2021's already on the website too.
Is it?
The annual audit.
21 and 22 is on the.
So is it just like that? Like it's broken down simple, not every
It's
single
broken
item?
down by departmental line item, saying budget.
Okay. So if there's any way that we can get 1, 2, and 3 on there, so we can see all that as a comparison to see. So I can say, oh, it went up in this circle. Why? What happened? What do we have to do? You know, and maybe the council needs that too. So that would be fantastic. I think I have another question too. No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, yeah, no problem. You know what, I'm sorry, just, oh, come on up, you're next, because I forgot all about you, I'm sorry. You were the first guy to ask a question.
Sorry,
I didn't know about you, sorry.
I think James 406 Rain Avenue. What's three questions here? First one is the utility surplus, 451,000. It was there last year and sort of disappeared this year. Well, could you sort of explain that one? A little bit more detail on that?
Anthony would be happy to, I'm sure it's correct.
Yeah, there's a 451,000 surplus on the utilities for last year, but it didn't carry through for this year. Question is, what was it? Why did it disappear?
So those were catch-ups essentially. The utility funds have never paid historically for pension costs, liability costs, or health insurance costs. So, that amounts that were transferred, I think it was 251,000 from one of the utilities, 250,000 from the other. Those were essentially transferred over to the current fund to reimburse current fund for the amounts that it had been paying for those 3 buckets over the last number of years. But the utilities were never paying.
Could you not push it over a number for the year rather than trying to push it all into 1 year?
The Division of Local Government Services directed us to allocate it that way and have the here bring it over and call it a day.
That's kind of our governing body.
It's a great big chunk of money to have to find.
It is.
Yeah, but you know, the states don't want you to have to talk to about that. We were told them about that.
But is that, Anthony, is that something that we're gonna do every year? Because it was
Well, that's what
Properly not charged.
They told us that was it, and that's why it's not in this budget this year.
and that's why we've done the allocations.
And now going forward, we're just allocating the current year costs to the utility.
Yes.
Which is roughly what, in comparison to the 451,000.
Yeah, so the question on, as an example, the question on the benefits, healthcare, all that stuff, in the sewer and in the beach, there's $232,000 of allocations. This year allocations in the beach and sewer. In the past, that wasn't being done, that's why we had to do this catch up. Now it's in there, so we shouldn't have that recurring. The hit we take though is a variance year on year perspective, you move $500,000 out, and then you leave it. I mean, if we wanted to shrink that objective, I'd ask my 2 council folks if they want to move some surplus money from the beach or sewer into the current fund. That would be.
But that answers my question.
It sort of does, yeah. And now I understand it a bit more. The second one was, I think it's the previous guy who asked the question. With the beach badges, it looks as though, you know, we've got a surplus of 1.8, but we've got a lot of operating expense as well. Again, to help everyone, it'd be great just to see, you know, like the beach badges or the operating the beach. What are we getting revenue, and then what are we doing expense?
Yeah.
What is profit at the end of it?
Yeah, so just a quickie on that, I can, because I put up the beach badge line once or twice. Prior to COVID, we were enjoying about $1.5 million in beach badge revenue. The COVID year, $1.5 million, 5 years, 2.4 million revenue. Because nobody could go anywhere, so they went to the beach. This last 2 years, we've enjoyed about a $2 million number, so versus the $1.5 million, it's up 30+%. So the good news is some of the people who came to the beach stayed at the beach. Yeah. We never budgeted the 2.5 and 2.4 because we just knew that was a crazy number. We actually enjoyed 2 million last year. We're budgeting $1.8 million because last year was a decent weather year. And we don't wanna, we gotta match our expenses with some conservatism on beach badge, because there is some variability. Not so much variability in sewer, but more variability in beach.
So what do we roughly make then on?
How much?
How much do we actually make it? What's the surplus on beach badges versus expenditure? Is that 2 million?
It's pretty much a break. No, it's pretty much, no, the total beach utility is about 2.5, 2.6. And so we have to take those utilities and break them even every year. So our expense and revenue has to match. There's no like P and L where we make profit. So if we do have less expense and we have a great bumper year in revenue, we create more surplus. And then you say, okay, what do I want to do with that surplus? 2 years ago, we put in a new playground. We're gonna make a recommendation on increasing some handicap access on the beach. So we're gonna use those funds, those surplus funds as appropriate. But you gotta kind of balance and manage. Over time.
Last question. The church is obviously in the process of being sold. Does that get added into this year or is that next year? You know, that's gonna be a surplus at the end of it.
Well, it's a good question. And we kicked out, is that for 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll do it in 10 seconds. Joyce. Because we haven't executed anything, it wouldn't be this year. It could be an actual this year. But it's probably, we just can't anticipate it at this point because we're not that far along. We do kind of have an idea what might shake out, but we're just not there yet.
If I may, Mayor.
Yeah, you're gonna hit the timing thing, yeah.
You need, as a municipality, to have realized the revenue to be able to appropriate it. So it would have to be realized this year to be appropriated next year.
Oh, I see.
From my standpoint, if I end up out in the audience, my position is going to be that whatever that might be should be spread out over a 3 to 5 year period so that it doesn't make a major hit to the budget, but it is something that allows stability in the budget over time.
Yeah. Because we've got a recurring situation we have this year. A bunch of revenue, and then we've got to kind of do the matches. But we are aggressively moving through that right now. All right, thank you. Questions? Thank you. He asked my question. So, okay. Okay. Yes.
Couple of questions. One, on the surplus
Name and address.
of Rick Bartolome, 116 Newark Avenue. On the surplus, which you're transferring $1.5 million, how much is that left on the balance sheet?
Our surplus as of 12/31 was about 2.9 million, if I remember off the top of my head. So we're utilizing about 50%.
Okay, so my one point on this matter would be, let's be, rather than having 50%, why don't we keep 40% and take 100,000 more and put it in to reduce the tax rate a little bit more. That's my one point I have to bring up. Next thing, on the beach badges, you have $1.85 million. It's going about 2 million every year.
Well, last year was 2 million.
2 million. So even if it goes down a little bit, I would say, let's take 50,000, let's make it $1.9 million. So now you got 50,000 more. So now just between these two line items, you got 150,000 that you're reducing.
Well, by taking 50,000 in utility, that has no impact on the taxes. Keep in mind. They are two.
No, he's talking about a surplus transfer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's what he's talking about.
Let's see.
Which I know I'll arm wrestle you two on that, so.
Another question on the beach operating fund. I mean, obviously, we're talking about getting more detail. You have 497,000 of other. Now, coming from my own MBA finance experience, I know a lot of things get thrown into other. So I think that's something that should be looked at.
So we have a breakdown of all that other.
Okay, well, that's something as other people have mentioned here, they would like to see more detailed breakdown to see if maybe there might be something that might be missed. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, oh, who's pointing? Oh, sorry.
You should. I'll tell you my spot.
Age requirement.
I think I would qualify on the age. Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. I just have a couple questions on the buckets from the capital budget and capital plan. How come the sinkholes in general, not beach? It's on the beach. I mean, it's all the same, you know, you still gonna come out of our pockets, but
No, the Sylvan Lake sinkhole is stormwater sinkhole, that is not beach related,
the sinkhole's on the beach, right?
let me finish. McCabe, Ocean Park is from the beach. If it's not characterized that way, we should characterize it that way. But that's where the funds are coming from right now. About $1.3 million in Ocean Park, McCabe, and it's
Okay.
Sylvan, we're not there. We're Avon's still working. Trying to do what they're doing.
And how come the DPW building in Sylvan Lake were in sewer capital?
Partially, because part of what DPW does is sewer.
Okay, and the bulkhead,
What about bulkhead?
that's in sewer as well?
Is that in sewer?
Yeah, it says Sylvan Lake bulkhead, it's sewer.
Oh, don't know. We'll follow up.
Yeah, I mean, that should be, I don't know, unless they're
These are
qualified
projected,
there.
so these are projected costs out, so we just gotta characterize them like it's back.
Yeah.
It's under bulkhead extension is.
No, it's Sylvan Lake bulkhead.
Oh, Sylvan Lake, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll look at, I think we just.
Just curious.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Yes.
Okay, Linda Duffy, 312 Brinley Avenue. I do believe in nickel and diming because our nickel and diming is thousands, it's not 5 cents. Anyway, I think what this town has to do is look at their practices that are not generating any practice at all, like sweeping the streets in the middle of the street when both sides of the street are parked with cars. Why are we picking up garbage on holidays during the winter months?
We are looking at that.
Thank you. And some of the ways that contracts are negotiated, you have to really do it the right way and look at the other towns surrounding us and what they have in their contracts and compare it. So I think that's not a nickel and dime thing.
No.
Also, I think, all right, now we have fireworks on the beach.
Yes.
It comes out of tourism. Why is that?
Sorry.
It comes out of tourism. I was told,
Versus the beach,
yes.
because it comes out of the tourism trust. So
Why is that?
Because it brings people into the town. I mean,
But the beach brings people into town,
Yeah.
and that's at the beach, so I don't understand that. And I don't have them, and I didn't look through all my past bills lists, but if I don't from recollect, right, don't we pay some of the library fees like water? Why doesn't it come out of their budget when we give them money?
I don't know the answer to that
It
question.
does?
So those set of fees that were paid for the library, we take out of their library tax.
I'll make sure.
And then whatever's left over at the end of the year, essentially is what we provide to them,
Yeah.
and then say, all right, we paid for these fees for you, here's the balance.
Okay,
We're taking a close eye on that too, because we've done a lot of public works work in the library, and we're just trying to discern.
well, maybe we could have more programs for the children or,
No, I think
Other
I think
people-
we did pretty good. for it.
no, we do, but so much more. We want to keep the people happy. Go ahead.
If I can address, just to answer about the street sweeping, I believe if, this is like a state requirement to comply with our stormwater permit. We have to show that we're sweeping.
But it never gets sweet.
Well, that, the state.
I know there
does that though, so, like, you know.
But it's a waste of time. Why do we mow the grass on the beach?
Right,
during summer?
Part of this is just to meet stormwater permits with the streets we're gonna adapt. Yes, we can do a better job and get people to move their cars and. I bet you, how many people here? There's a lot of people here. How many of you know when the street sweeping happens in front of your, and you move your car?
Exactly.
And do your neighbors, right?
Right.
So we can do better, I agree with that, but it's not, we're just not sweeping like for fun.
Is that county or state?
It's a state stormwater permit, like to meet, because everything that's running off of ours is going into state water. meaning
Right,
lake
but-
and ocean.
I lived in another county. They didn't sweep the street, but I report them. I mean,
They may not have a stormwater permit, I don't know, I don't know the answer to that, I don't really know, but I like the idea about the fireworks, this charge the beach.
yes, thank you.
Yes.
Meetings are 116 work. But now we're down to 5.3% of the increase. all in, when you count the library, the school, the county,
Right,
what's the total impact?
4.4%,
An additional 4.4?
no, 4.4%.
Yeah.
Your taxes going up for, yeah, 4.4%.
Okay.
I will bet. I don't have any money in my wallet, but it's 4.4%. I've been working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify that 4.4% versus the 5.3%. Me and Mullen is 302,000.
4.4% is a combination of local levy, school, county, and library. You take 23, 22, divide numerator denominator, the dollars are 4.4% up in total.
So the 5.3% is only for
Just the
the,
municipal levy,
okay,
right, that we just, the part that we control.
right,
I talk about the total because people, when they get their bill, they don't care what's what, they want to know how much they have to pay. So that diagram up there shows 19.1 for 2023. 19.1 minus 18.3 divided by 1,934 homes is kind of the average increase.
so. if I
That's
look at my-
4.4%.
So if my bill was whatever last year, this year, whatever, last time, it's gonna go up by 4.4% overall.
It depends on the value of your home. The total will be 4.4%. But the value of your home, if there's a I can give you the sheet after the meeting, it'll show you your approximate value of your house. You paid this much in 22, this much in 23. It'll
We're not all the same percentage I'm a bad mathematician, I guess. Not everybody gets the same.
If your home went up
percentage.
more in value than your neighbors for whatever reason.
Right,
It's not gonna be. It's not evenly across.
Yeah, that's the wild card in this count, because a lot of people, a lot of communities and municipalities will say, your rate went down, that's great. Our appreciation went up 19.5%, so our rate's down, that's
right, I
great.
understand
But if
that.
we went up 19.5% in all those spend categories, it wouldn't be good. So it's 4.4% year on year is our total cost as a community,
As a whole.
As a whole,
you know,
everything.
everybody.
all in, as the question was all in is 4.4%. 19.1 over 18, whatever that number is, that's 18.3 is 4.4%. Yeah, sorry.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. I came late, so perhaps this has already been addressed. And I have no packet, so again, if I'm saying something that you've said, I'm sure you'll be happy to correct me. I am not a nickel and dimer, I'm a penny pincher. So. That fine tooth comb with de novo. It'd be like a big fine tooth comb. But I've asked this question previously and I never get an answer that I comprehended, to say it nicely. Excluding seasonal employees. When money is taken from the sewer authority into the current fund, which I can no longer then deduct from my taxes because it's not part of my tax bill. And when money is taken from the beach utility into the current fund. Whose salaries is that attributed to, specifically positions, not names, positions? And what percent of their salary is taken from those funds?
I'm not sure. I understand the question because, well, first of all, we've taken no sewer or beach funds into the current fund. Zero. We do have current funds. All of our employees are in current funds to start in the payroll system, et cetera. A piece of them gets allocated. Sewer, it's about 15 people, not 15 total people, but a percentage of.
What percentage?
It depends on the person. We have a couple. Well, I'll answer your question. Public Works might have 1 or 2 people that's 50%. I don't have the schedule in front of me. We can provide the schedule to you. Administration has a small percent because they do work for the sewer. Tax collection has a small percent, so there's about 15 to 17 people, actual people. Here's their names, here's the percent that they're allocated, and it has been looked at, and I believe it's in an ordinance. Is that correct, Greg, or no?
Yes, some of
It was actually baked into an ordinance a few years ago on those percents.
Okay, perhaps I wasn't clear. The specific position and specific percentage,
We have that.
because that, okay, share it with the public, please. Because all salaries, if the bank is doing payroll correctly, we're matching on taxes, and we've got the state pension plan and all of that. So again, what type of, which positions are the ones that are the lowest paying? Are we taking 5%? Are we taking 5% off of the top positions? We have the right to know what percentage is being moved from the beach that we would be spending on the beach to go into the current fund, the same way that we're not paying out of it, the same way with the beach utility.
So the beach, that's a little bit different story. The beach has direct employees, lifeguards, gatekeepers, etc.
Those are excluding seasonal employees.
Okay, they're all in the beach fund. In addition to that, there is some percentage of people that are allocated to the beach basis of work they do on the beach. We have that scheduled too. I don't know what that number is, but the issue that came up last year was that those people that were allocated in prior years, no benefits were allocated to those utilities. So we took about $500,000 and moved it there. This year, it's about $233,000 that we are not allocating, actually, well, it is allocated to those funds. Which is appropriate. We're matching expenses to the appropriate utilities. Probably better than we've ever done.
That didn't answer my question. Okay, the point is.
I think I said we would provide that to you.
Oh, that would be great. The position will be provided and the percentage that we are charging on of their work that goes to those two different utilities where we receive to be the
It's
people.
actually on the,
Excellent.
it's actually on our website in our ordinances.
I'm not asking for the website, for the ordinance. I'm asking for the positions. We change positions here like people change underwear all the time.
Thank you. Yes.
It says here's $1,000. Just like to drill down for a minute on the sewer component of the overall budget, since that's something that Rick Barsano, and I spent a lot of time on in conjunction with the strategic plan. And we had a lot of data that I really would need to have in order to do some comparisons, but just one specific question that gets back to a pledge that our former VA made when she came on. And that was to implement a time system that would accurately enable you to determine how much time is spent by each employee that has an allocation to the sewer. What we had observed from our analysis of the information for here and then compared it with other borough sewer systems around the state that was somewhat comparable was the salary and of course the fringes that go with it were disproportionately much higher for Bradley Beach. So one of the remedies for that was to implement the system. So my question is, has that been implemented? Does an employee, one of the 15 or 19, or whatever number, each day, if they put time in, is that recorded?
My understanding of the new payroll system is that it's happening. I'll validate that with the new payroll clerk. We implemented a new payroll system in January. And I think that gives us the ability to.
It really went live March of 22.
March 20, okay, so yeah. So I will find that out.
You're not gonna have accurate data then.
March of 22.
Of 22, okay.
It's 23 now. So it's
Okay.
yeah. So I will find that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just as an example, without getting into all of those employees, the ones that
spend 100% of their time and the ones that spend 5%. The allocation, when we looked at everything, and I'm sure it's changed, I hope it has, was that the VA had 25% of the VA salary allocated to sewer. Well, that means 25% is a pretty high number on a 52-week calendar to be allocated to sewer. And I'm hoping that changed. But that's just an example of how you end up with the statement I made initially.
Yep. Okay, I will follow up. Thanks. Yeah. We're almost out of time.
Regine McGuire, 610 Brindley Ave. I have a lot of questions here, so is there a way to pause the plot when my questions are getting answers?
You could ask all of them and then we can answer them after.
Or if you put them in writing, we can answer them.
I prefer not to. Okay, so how much goes into the sewer fund each year on average?
Anthony, you probably have that copy of the 2 May.
When you say goes into, you talking about how much is in the budget?
Goes into the sewer, yeah, like how,
We're talking about like how much surplus going to the sewer, how much salary going to the sewer.
How much money's collected?
yeah, how much is collected?
This is the rents for $1.65 million.
And that's an average per year? Is that every year?
It's not gonna change a lot. It's about another seven.
Okay, so for how many years? I guess what I'm asking is how many years has that been like the average?
Well, before it was higher because in 2020, the council lowered the sewer rates because we were paying too much and all that stuff.
Okay, so if we take the lower amount, the 2 million, and average that over the last 10 years. Okay, so being that we're doing all these sewer projects right now, and we're out of money. Where's all that sewer money from all those years? Am I making sense asking this?
Why are you saying we're out of money?
Well, because we're always talking about needing to budget for these big sewer projects.
Well, we borrow.
So,
We borrow that money, it's in bus, and that gets charged to the sewer over 30 years, 40 years. Like a mortgage.
right, so I guess I'm asking for the 30 and 40 years we have paid into the sewer. Right? We had money all,
We didn't have any bond money, so we just started incurring bond money because we just started improving the sewers.
From the day that we instituted the sewer utility, it would have made sense to put away a nickel for every person that's paying that sewer
Sure.
bill every month. To pay for 50 years later or whatever, when they needed to do
Right.
it, like, but we did it. And those are decisions made a long, long time ago, so when in the last administration, like, hey, we need to replace all our sewers, we're like, we're gonna borrow every dollar of that because we don't have that money in the sewer.
okay, thank you, that's, I was trying to figure that out. Okay. Ms. DeNoble asked if the surplus was replenished for 2022. We got some explanations, a lot of it goes over my head, but I wanted to just get the answer. Did that mean no, it was not replenished?
So our fund balance took a slight hit in each of the funds.
But so it wasn't replenished.
The beach wasn't replenished by $8,000. The sewer was a little bit more than that. And I don't know about the current fund. So they're never exact each year.
Okay.
Are our funds in pretty good shape, our surpluses? I would say yes, in all 3 cases.
For a borough your size, yeah, they're not terrible. Because of the budget issues that we have, they are terrible.
So is our goal each year to try to replenish back what came out of it?
I mean, ultimately, the goal is not to replenish fund balance, the goal is to generate fund balance. To essentially pay for the projects that we're just talking about, the future projects.
Okay.
We don't have fund balance increases each year, then it becomes more difficult to have projects going on, paying improvements in the borough, things like that. But realistically, we want to have increases in fund balance.
My brain, I'm trying, guys, I'm trying. Okay. With all due respect, we're at a budget workshop. Why don't you have a budget in front of you?
I wasn't expecting detailed questions like this.
I mean, please, I just had to ask you because next time it would be nice to be prepared. I mean, you are the guy to ask questions to. And it's just a little embarrassing to,
Okay, we got it. Any more questions?
yes, more questions. And I'm allowed to be annoyed to come to a workshop and the CFO doesn't have a budget in front. Thanks.
I can get a budget if you want.
We're at beyond that question. I'd like to ask the council members that are here, do you have details to all these numbers we saw today? Do you have a breakdown of all those details and do you understand what those details are? And do these numbers seem normal?
I don't have that budget in front of me now, that
Did you have it? Have you been given
I
that
have
detail?
not gone over that. I mean, stuff got emailed, I have not gone over it, because I this budget workshop.
Okay, when did you receive that?
Oh, I don't know.
The revised, the council people received, early Monday morning to include line item detail. Any adjustments that were made in the prior. The prior one was 5 or 6 weeks ago, we completed analysis. And so they got this week.
So Monday, they got those numbers and that reflects all the numbers we saw today? Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so what was our total tax percentage in, last year? Like the increase from 21 to 22, what was that total?
Total taxes that we had last year was for the average home over $811,000, $8,486.60. Projected for the same home in 2023, $972,000 home. The projected estimated total tax of $8,869.48.
Can you see the percentage in relation to the 4.4 from 21, from 22 to 23? What was the percentage in the total from 21 to 22?
It
So
was,
we can
it was
understand.
about 1.7%.
So we went from a 1.7
Yeah,
to 4.4.
Yes, we did. And the reason we did for here and here was we really tried to minimize any tax increase in the 2 COVID years. So we put a strong focus on that.
Right, but we did get a lot of money that came in from like all that extra funding we got last
And that's
year.
part of what helped us with that tax rate. When that funding goes away this year, which it has.
Right. I get that, I get that.
So
I
that's
just
why.
wanted to know the difference of that increase. Thank you.
As I said, over the last 3 years, the increase on average in total has been about 440,000. The prior 2 years was $689,000. We reduced the rate of spend by 36% over the last 3 years. The rate of increase in this community has reduced by 36% on average.
Okay,
2 times up.
so. Well, I have a few more questions and since I got some answers.
Be happy to, well, actually, there's a budget introduction next week. You can bring them in, but.
But that won't help. An introduction doesn't help
Then
the
you can send,
workshop.
you can send that.
You can hand your questions to another person if you like.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Anyone want to
Yes.
ask about consolidated and we did that 300,000 last year and we didn't get those answers?
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. Mr. Medina, while you have that on there, could you tell me, on the beach utility, you have operating salaries and wages of $1,555,000? And I was wondering if you could tell me how much of that $1,555,000 is the police department?
I believe it's about
Or I need the number. I don't need to believe. I need the number.
I have it.
All right, got it.
Second and third. It's $323,000.
323, okay. And then on the general fund for the police department salaries and wages, do you have that number right there, Mayor?
Sorry. That would be. That's in the fund.
So in current fund, the police department, $2,371,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we also have police dispatch 911 of 95,000, and Office of Emergency Management of 15,000.
Great, okay, yeah, it'd be nice to see those numbers crisply, so we would know what we're talking about.
We have, them, but we just. So, I have more questions.
Yeah, I have 5 minutes for it, yeah. Sure. I have some comments too. I just want to know what, on the capital improvement cuts, do you have detail on which one that 555,000 that's been removed since the March 8th meeting? That's proposed here in your budget challenges?
Yeah, so the capital improvement, a significant amount of that money is tied into future projects that we would bond. One of those is potentially the public works transfer from one facility to the next. We did a presentation on that some time ago, maybe 3 months ago. That number was in the neighborhood of $4 or $5 million. So we'd have to bond a portion of that. So any improvements we're looking for going forward, we minimized, and we're probably gonna have to push them out of here.
Okay, any others besides that?
That's when it goes off to the top of my head, Greg.
There's the reduction of one police vehicle replacement. There's the elimination of certain improvements in the police department. There's the elimination of alleyway improvements that were recommended by the Department of Public Works. And there was a reduction of an appropriation for roof replacements.
Great, so those are great answers, Rebecca, I appreciate it. Mayor, I just have a comment. I attended the council meeting in Howell Township where they did their budget introduction. And the CFO turned to the city manager, said, you know, it's been a lot of work. We've been doing this since May. And it just seems like here, we're just doing this in the last 5 weeks. This all should have been collaborative work way ahead of time. As a councilman, I did it collaboratively, and it was a wonderful experience to share with the public. But it would have been nice if some of those sheets were out for us to look at as residents. I mean, we are the shareholders. I know
And your sheets are not available until after the budget introduction. Statute.
Oh, okay. So in July, they'll be available.
I think it'll be available next week.
Great, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Two 18,400. You have good questions, I'll ask. But my one question is particularly with the employee count.
I'm sorry.
The employee head count from year to year to year. First of all, do we have that to know how we've grown or shrunk over the past 2 to 3 years? And does that correlate into actual, like, actionable jobs are necessary, that we need those necessary FTEs? Like, my big question is, who is actually the stopgap on that? Like, who's the person? I know obviously Kim was before you in charge, but I mean, who checks you? Who checks that every department is running as efficiently as possible? How are we not checking that everything that we should be doing or could be, you know, maximizing or optimizing our opportunities we're doing?
Well,
In most municipalities, and I've served about 30 of them, the standard practice is that it's the responsibility of the administrator or the manager and the department head. And that is typically where it takes place. And there are often reports made by those parties to the governing body. In this particular case, for this budget, we literally looked at every individual employee that was currently employed by the organization. There has been no change in employee count since that analysis was done. To be able to make sure that the numbers that appear in that budget reflect the people for whom the municipality has an obligation.
Okay, I understand that you're saying, okay, your checks and balances on who the employees are, but is anybody actually looking at the actual work processes and things that are getting done to say, okay, if we have 15 in this department, do we need 15 in this department? You know, what are we doing with all the part-times that are here, there, and everything? Is there a responsibility for us to be paying benefits for the part-timers? Or are we making sure to keep the part-timers under 20 hours so we don't have a liability or responsibility to pay benefits, things of that nature, where there are cost-cutting measures that in any corporation you're in operations, you're told to do. I've had 20 years of operations.
Well, one of the things we did, we, on an ongoing basis do that. We've been looking at overtime very critically. We've been looking at work flows pretty critically with some of the departments. As Greg said, we went through a line item process over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and about $173,000 out of line budgets. And primarily, not big budget, the big budgets are police and public works. You can take those two and they're $5 or $6 million. So that's a big chunk of money. So we're continuing to look at that. We'll continue to look at that.
But could that information or that, like, again, like one you just detailed, just that detail should be easily, up on our websites to say, here's last year's budget, here's 2 years ago, so even we could even figure that out if we wanted to.
Last year, this year, that is up for last year.
Mhm.
It will be up for this year. It's 40 pages. 45 pages, 45 pages of year-on-year information
Okay.
by in detail.
Now, last year, we had the situation where there was, $300,000 in the wage and salaries, and then all of a sudden that $300,000 disappeared. Do we know how or why or where? We were never told, so. How could it all of a sudden, we need the 300,000 for real people, and it just goes away? Do we know why that happened or where that answer is?
We still, and we're completing it, hopefully, looking at my 2 financial guys. We have some liabilities that we are still assessing on how we paid people and what we paid people. Those analysis are almost complete.
Mhm.
And there could be a liability out there on that. Is it $300,000? I hope not. Last year, we didn't know the size of the basket. We budgeted that and I said, we think it's gonna be around that. I don't think it's gonna be that much, but it's still gonna be a liability. We might have to go into our current fund against that. So it wasn't a pull number out of the air. It was a concern about a liability on past practices, past administrations, past people that unfortunately, the practices weren't appropriate. HFA and Anthony have almost completed the analysis.
Okay, and lastly. All coming into this meeting, we all were presuming or assuming, hating to use that word, that it was gonna be a supposed 20% increase. How did we all of a sudden get down to 5.3?
But
Or 4.4, or whichever one it is, 5.3? How do we all of a sudden get down to that? That's my question.
I went over that. I think I went over that.
Okay, sorry, I might have come in late on that. So I'll
It's in the packages.
I'll go to the notes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last one. Yes.
My name's Shishi, 112 4th Avenue. Thank you for this meeting. I think it was informative, but as a resident, I'm disappointed that Councilwoman Meredith DeMarco isn't here and Councilman Billy Posey is not here. You have your financial people here and Councilman Gubitosi is the resident's financial person. And we would have greatly appreciated, I would have greatly appreciated his input at this meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you have another question?
Yeah, I do. When this was in your presentation, Mr. Mayor, when this page, we were talking about, well, just the zero-based salary rerun. I don't know what that, what's a salary rerun?
So we, as Greg said earlier, we went through every position and were able to correct and validate a couple of budget numbers that were in by the tune of $64,000. So we went through the new payroll system and took everybody and.
How did that say it's for $64,000? Did you find you were overpaying people by $60,000?
No. The budget that we did back in March was overstated by $64,000.
Oh, yeah.
And we fine tuned that down to kind of a call from that side. That's what we did.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions? We ran over a little bit. We'll get some dinner. Thank you all for coming. And, see some of you next week.
Anybody want to speak?
Oh,
No.
One hand up.
No,
That's not a hand on, that's like a, that's the mouse person.
Wow.
I think we need to change that cursor.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I know. Good night.
We changed that to an arrow.
Yeah.
Okay, make a motion to,
Anybody right here? Thank you. Maybe she got stuck in traffic. Oh, no.